Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished ambassadors, friends and colleagues. At COP28, a commitment was made to triple renewable energy capacity by 2030. To put this into perspective, that means globally, we will need to install over 7,000 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity within the next 6 years. These installations come with substantial financial implications. The International Renewable Energy Agency expects that we need to see annual investment in renewable power generation increase from $570 billion in 2023 to $1.55 trillion on average between now and 2030. Over a century ago, the world saw the beginning of the renewable energy's potential. In 1882, one of the earliest hydroelectric power plants began operations at Vulcan Street Hydroelectric Plant in Wisconsin, the United States, harnessing power generated from the Fox River. A year later, in 1883, New York inventor Charles Fritz created the first solar cell. In the next 5 years, we need to add more renewable capacity than the total installed since those historic moments in the 1800s. So the question remains, how do we achieve this? Forums like this Cambodia ASEAN Business Summit build on the commitments we have made globally and within ASEAN and unlock the potential of the ASEAN region. This is time to talk, and more importantly, it is time to take action. In Cambodia, under the remit of the Ministry of Mines and Energy, the strategy for the green transition is fourfold. One, we are increasing the deployment of domestic renewable energy, energy efficiency, electrification across buildings, transport, and industry. Two, we are building a resilient grid that can withstand and adapt to changing conditions and demands. And three, we are working with our neighbors to make cross-border electricity trading a reality. And of course, four, we are increasing the capacity of local workers to meet the demands of the green transition. We will promote investment specifically targeted to support these critical areas, ensuring that the transition advances environmental goals and contributes to economic development and regional cooperation. It is a mission that is inclusive of everyone, particularly for women and young people. With the time I have here with you today, I want to elaborate on Cambodia's targeted strategy for net zero transition in relation to energy and what we are doing to ensure an environment to facilitate these initiatives and meet our global commitments. Firstly, establishing an enabling environment is key in achieving our energy targets. This includes creating favorable conditions, not just for investments, but also for innovation, job creation, and sustainable development, and specifically empowering women in the energy sector. To meet our target of 70% installed renewable capacity, a 19% decrease in energy consumption, and enhanced electrification by the end of this decade, Cambodia is welcoming strategic partnerships and implementing actionable reforms, streamlining regulatory processes, offering incentives to attract both domestic and international investors, and ensuring green energy projects are financially viable are fundamental to our approach. Further, we are committed to simplifying permitting processes, aligning grid development with long-term energy planning, standardizing power contracts with government guarantees, and implementing policy that reduce the cost of financing for renewable projects. In support of these initiatives, the National Energy Efficiency Plan enables the Ministry of Mines and Energy to enhance public awareness and drive investment in energy efficiency projects across industrial, residential, and commercial sectors. Energy efficiency, our invisible fuel, is at the top of our agenda. Before we consider generating more, we are looking at how we consume less. It is our most cost-effective tool for achieving increased energy security, reducing energy costs, and creating a cleaner environment. Yet, we face challenges like access to capital and information asymmetries. To overcome these, we are embarking on strategic reforms aiming to leverage energy efficiency for Cambodia's net zero transition. Innovation like hydrogen fuel and battery storage systems are also in trial phases, complemented by the introduction of renewable energy certificates to support the private sector's climate objectives. These efforts align with our commitment to the law on public-private partnership, which facilitates the development and implementation of energy and infrastructure projects through clear and efficient standard operating procedures. Finally, by anticipating inevitable shift in labor market, we are proactively addressing workforce gap. The transition to clean energy hinges on having knowledgeable and skilled workforce. By upskilling and reskilling workers and allocating greater resources to the training of policymakers, energy planners, and regulators, we aim to strengthen our energy governance. I advocate for companies to take a proactive role in the green transition, empowering their employees to participate in training and workshops focused on renewable energy technologies and sustainable practices. For Cambodia, working with others is essential. It is our collaborative advantage. This is our second key ingredient in our approach. This principle is brought to life at home through our work with international agencies, public-private partnerships, and through our approach to regional engagement. Underpinning our commitment to collaboration, the Ministry of Mines and Energy has been actively engaging in regional dialogues on regional power trade within ASEAN. Since taking my ministerial role, I have consistently engaged with like-minded partners to continue strengthening cross-border grid interconnections and make the ASEAN power grid a reality. While Cambodia may be a small country, our dedication to renewable energy makes us an important link in the regional energy network. Our collaborative ventures, notably the plans for the subsea transmission cable to Singapore, demonstrate our capacity to support larger regional ambition and connectivity. When we talk about regional interconnectivity and the ASEAN power grid, we are not just referring to the physical interconnectors linking different countries. We are also talking about interconnected supply chains that enhance the region's overall energy efficiency and reliability. For example, we want to see more subsea cable produced in the ASEAN region to reduce logistical challenges and associated carbon footprint, but also stimulate local economies and create jobs. In actively supporting the regional grid integration and cross-border power trade, we aim to build a resilient and efficient energy network that can support our collective shift to renewable energy. Finally, alongside our energy initiatives, Cambodia is prioritizing environmental conservation and the sustainability of natural resources. This involves protecting our forests, rivers, and biodiversity, which are all crucial for the ecological balance and support the holistic approach to our net zero transition. We have taken firm steps, like the ban on new licenses in Prey Long Wildlife Sanctuary and a crackdown on illegal mining. The Cambodian government, under the Prime Minister's leadership, has also taken decisive actions against deforestation by deploying armed forces in certain protected areas like the Cardamom Mountains. By safeguarding our environment, we ensure the longevity and effectiveness of our renewable energy projects. Let me finish by saying the path to achieving our ambitious renewable energy goals is complex. It requires significant efforts, collaboration, and innovation. Cambodia, along with our neighbors, is committed to leading the charge in clean energy transition. Our shared goals for energy security, sustainability, and economic growth form the cornerstone of our regional collaboration. The pledges made at COP28 lay a good foundation, but the true test will be in the implementation and scaling of initiatives. A multifaceted approach is essential for a successful transition to clean energy and towards net zero. By identifying and leveraging investment opportunities, we are building towards a transformative energy landscape in Southeast Asia. I look forward to hearing the views of our distinguished speakers on what more all of us can do together to achieve these ambitious goals. We must find a way to finance a different world. We cannot continue to stand and say the time is now. Those times have come and gone. It's time for concrete action. I call upon each of you as leaders, innovators, global citizens to join us in this mission. Let us combine our strengths, share our knowledge, and commit to real impactful change. It is our turn to steer the ship so that our legacy is not just remembered, but celebrated as a turning point for our planet. Thank you.
Let me slowly introduce my panelists, shall we? The first is His Excellency Gao Rotanak, who you heard from just moments ago. He's the Minister of Mines and Energy, formerly Director General of EDC. His Excellency assumed office as the Minister of Mines and Energy for Cambodia in 2023. Minister, please. Next, we have His Excellency Nia Soksen San, Secretary of State from MEF in charge of PPP, formerly the Director of the International Cooperation Development for Cambodia's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Minister Soksen San has served as the Secretary of State at the Cambodian Ministry of Economy and Finance since 2016. Next, we have Mr. Paul Clements, Chairman of the International Business Chamber of Cambodia. With an extensive background in international banking across Australia, Indonesia, Cambodia, and China, Mr. Clements now serves as the Executive Chairperson of the International Business Chamber of Cambodia. Have I got that right? Last but not least, and we heard from him as well earlier today, Mr. Tanong Singh Kalegna, Executive Vice President of the Lao National Chamber of Commerce and Industry and Chair of ASEAN Business Award 2024. He was also President of Datacom Company Limited, a Parliament member of National Assembly of the Lao, PDR ASEAN back member. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us. My first question to you all, obviously, and you all can have a chance to jump in when I move this chair a bit because I can't see you, is if you could kindly just describe the current mix. And Minister, may I start with you? The current mix of the energy grid here in Cambodia.
Sorry, I didn't pay attention.
Oh, you didn't pay attention?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. Now, how would you describe right now the current mix?
Okay.
The current energy mix. Do you know how to switch that on?
Yes. Well, it's quite, thank you for the question. I think
for us, economy and finance, I think it's very encouraging question for this kind of. I think our state minister from the Kai Ratana would be probably the best person to answer this question. I think anyway, I'm from the PPP, public and private partnership. So I think for overall investment, I think we encourage all this. It's also already mentioned in the Pentagonal strategy. But it's coming back to your question, I think it's very important for Cambodian to starting with the renewable energy kind of mix of energy and guarantee of resource of the energy. This is important for Cambodians, especially in the new term. And then since we are now enjoying the growth, you have heard this morning of the speech of Prime Minister, and so I think I would let better in position to our State Minister Kai Ratana would answer this question better. But as a Ministry of Economy and Finance, we would support this. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Minister Ratanak, I listened to what you said a few moments ago, talking about your different initiatives and policies towards engaging foreign investment, for example, to come in and participate. What are the policies? What are the actual policies you're initiating?
Thank you. Let me first say that I've been your fan for many years, and thank you for
very
hosting
much. We
today.
shan't say how many years.
Great to see you on stage. First, on the energy mix of Cambodia today. Some 16 years ago, which was not long ago, we began our energy system with a heavy dependency on fuel oil. It represented something like almost 90%, 90%. Diesel and heavy fuel oil, known as HFO in short. And we didn't have electricity 24 hours a day for most part of the country. It was less than 14% of households having access to electricity, and the cost of electricity was almost $1 in many parts of the country. Now, 16 years later, because of the continued investment by the government and partnership with the private sector, our energy mix is very different. Today, our domestic hydropower represents about 42% in the generation mix. Solar energy, more than 10%, plus clean energy import from Laos, which is around 12%. So all in all, we have something like 62% renewable energy in our generation mix today. And if you look at household connection, we have made a good stride in that as well. 90% household already connected to the national grid, which means that this is a 24 hours connection, and the cost has been reduced to less than 10 cents for most of the poor in the country today. If you look at the number of villages across the country, it's more than 99% connected to the national grid, which taps into the more than 60% renewable energy as we speak. Now, if you look at the ASEAN benchmark, ASEAN only hopes that we can do something like 25% or 30% renewable, but Cambodia has already doubled that as we speak. In terms of energy policy that we have implemented to arrive at where we are today, we have made very concerted effort to invest in renewable energy sources, beginning what our natural endowments have to offer, which is hydropower. That's why we have something like 62 or 42% domestic hydropower, contributing to a significant share in the generation mix. Of course, solar energy as well, which is growing. And if you look at our target going to the future, that will even, that's going to be scaled up further to at least between 16 to 25% by the end of 2030, which is basically 6 years away. So to make up for something like 70% at least renewable combined with wind and pumped storage hydro in the next 6 years.
Some people will argue that's a bit ambitious.
It is an understatement, I must say. I think should be a lot of people who would think that it is overly ambitious. But we began as a young nation at the end of the war and civil conflicts. This is the first time that Cambodia has achieved internal peace and national reconciliation in our last more than 500 years of our own history. So a young nation with young people, I think we have to set a high bar. We rather fail against a high bar than to succeed at a low bar. Many years ago, when we worked with the World Bank, they forecast that we would not achieve the electrification rate like what we achieved today. Today, we have achieved the electrification rate almost universal, and we have done so more than 10 years earlier than what the World Bank forecasts. Now, we intend to surprise the world by doing the same thing. That yes, is at least 70% renewable by the end of 2030. It is complex, like I just said in my keynote address. It is going to be very ambitious. It is going to be challenging. But we believe that it is possible. And we believe in the power of partnership between the private and public sector. Our energy development and the success we have had to date, at the heart of that success is the strong partnership between the public sector and the private sector. We have not invested in generation for many decades. And that speaks volume about how much contribution the private sector can play. And gathering like this can point to the same facts that we can do that some more to preserve our climate together.
Thank you very much for those comments. Mr. Clements, let me drag you into this conversation. With your experience in business and traveling around the world, or at least in Asia Pacific, how do you see this shaping out, the business and private relationship?
The public and the private partnership.
Private and
It's happening. It's already happened, and as we said, the government's put in a policy for public-partner partnerships to allow infrastructure assets to be developed. So you take into power, we're working with the government sector and the private sector. It was mentioned before that Cambodia is going to supply power to Singapore to meet their increasing needs. That is very much a private and public partnership. The private side of it is being the Keppel infrastructure in Singapore, working with Royal Group companies here in Cambodia to collectively, provide power to the Singapore government. But inside that, it's also looking to generate additional energy sources to support Cambodia and potentially our neighbouring countries where we're importing, that eventually we can also export them to meet their increasing growth needs.
What sort of challenges have you faced so far?
The challenges is what the Minister indicated earlier is the financing. These are significant assets to, in the billions of dollars to actually construct. So that's the first one. But it's achievable, right? And we're talking about government contracts and supplying the power, so that's bankable. They're long-term contracts, so again, bankable. And we're talking about renewable energy products, so again, that is a bankable proposition. Not only to banks, because that's one of the things, we're only relying on banks. This has to extend to pension funds, insurance companies that are looking for long-term assets, and also, infrastructure funds that are now clearly focusing on green renewable assets. The other challenges, if we look at interconnectivity, is the transmission. We are talking about transmitting power for a very long distance. That is expensive. It's also, engineeringly a challenge and a cost. But it's looking at the modelling and everything else, it's achievable. And as the Minister said, we are relying on suppliers which are, not part of the world. So I agree, we need to actually start to build that supply network in Asia. So that would be one of the things we really should to support. Because this is one project now we're looking to export power from Cambodia, but it won't be the only one. So we need to, and if we can provide a base here of supply, skill base, then I think we can offer more.
Minister, you wanted to jump in?
Yes, I just want to add, on top of what Mr. Clement just mentioned. Well, actually, we start from the scratch, putting money from the government perspective is, I think it's quite challenging because you have to prioritize all these the sectors, and of course, energy will be one of the vital sectors that we could invest more, but we're still relying on investment, on private investment. And of course, that Mr. Clement already mentioned that it's difficult to find a bankable projects which you have to include all the private sectors into this project. And then, but we have a sort of a positive thinking in the future that, you know, jumping into green, it will be benefit for, of course, which is put in the policy of government, but you would also benefit, you know, convince all private sectors that jumping into green or renewable energy would benefit on the trade as well, because you would benefit from the international market that you sell the green, and you, of course, it's a benchmark for you. It's a brand for you to sell it in this time, of course, in the competitive world. Yes, thank you. I just would like to add this. Yes.
But you think it's achievable?
It's on progressing. Like I can give you an example that we are working on with the UK government on the green. We call it green project, green energy, green SAZ. It's a complex project, but it's starting now, and everybody thinks it's good. But we need to, you know, to laying ground and find the solution more, and then get everybody involved in this sector.
Right?
Sure. Yes.
Thank you, Minister. Mr. Tanong Singh, let me drag you into this from Laos. You are chair for ASEAN this year. You've listened to what they've said about some of the challenges and what's happening with their focus. Is that the same in Laos?
Yeah, I just want to share first congratulations to Cambodia on I think, a very strong commitment to renewable energy targets. And I think it's very good for our region if all our countries, especially near the Mekong, greater Mekong region, that can focus on this thing, because it will really brings in investors. Nowadays, investors is pretty much, you know, keen to jump in only if we talk about green, you know, energy and protect environment. So very important. I think it's the same strategy that I think for Laos we also try to move to. Talking about the mix of energy, I can say that, of course, we all know Laos has been in the hydropower sector for a while. Hence, we have 83% of our power generations, which is about 9,600 megawatts, for example. And we have thermal, coal-fired thermal, 16%. Biomass, about a little, 1%, and solar power, 1%. But there are new interesting projects coming up, like the first wind farm project, which is in the south. It's about 600 megawatt, calling the monsoon wind power project. So this is something that to show that the government is really promoting on terms of the new renewable sources, which is, of course, all we know will lower the electricity costs and also move us into the renewable energy strategy. Yes.
May I just say this, and I could correct me if I'm wrong, because this is what I've read, that inefficient transmission has seen a wastage of about 13% of energy in Laos, and that distribution has really hurt the transmission of electricity. Is that true, or?
Well, it's broadly true, and part of the reason is really of the existing transmission network, which is quite old and actually not sufficient. As you know, our territory is quite long, 1,000 kilometers from north to south, and especially on the high voltage lines. Yeah. So at present, the priority is very much in trying to solve those issues. That's why at present we have reduced that loss from 13 to 10%. Okay, and in the future, the large investment will be needed, just as like Minister mentioned, to improve the entire grid, and then also introducing like smart grid systems to optimize the generation, the transmission and distribution of power. And of course, I mentioned already that one of the issues is that the source of energy in Laos, in many cases, is quite far away from the location where it is actually used. I think the integration of transmission and distribution network with ASEAN country, which today we have with Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Myanmar, and also through transmission line with Malaysia and Singapore. So this is the future. And of course, we need to upgrade, modernize, our grid from transmission, which is the highway, to the distribution, which is the delivering to the end user. And this is to really solve the problem in the sustainable way.
I understand all of that and the eagerness to achieve this, but it takes money. Where are you finding the money?
Yes, so I think for as you mentioned, I will just join the UK ASEAN event in London. So we see that there are funds from the government of UK. You just mentioned for Cambodia, and I see that I just mentioned one country, but there are lots of interests to really do this. I mentioned the wind projects, and there are more. Actually, I understand in the 5 years we have a big projects coming up on renewable energy. So I think now is a good time to really pool, our efforts. And I think it's not just the money or the know-how, but people. So we have to really focus on training our people to all the skill that is needed in today smart and energy technology that to really, optimize our grids and try to integrate together. I think it's a dream for some time, but we can do, of course, not just with ASEAN, but also with our ASEAN partners, the +3, +5, and even country like UK, US, and other parts of the world, yes.
Yes, I was going to bring that up a bit later, but thank you for raising it. I'll bring it up a bit later. Before I throw it out to the floor, Mr. Rontata, let me ask you one question, and that is when we talk about integrating renewable energy, we have to take into consideration the environmental and social implications. What are you or your government doing to mitigate any potential adverse effects that come out from all these ambitious plans that you have?
Thank you. We have to strike a pretty good balance between what we need in terms of energy security and competitiveness, and also the need to protect our environment and any harmful effects from renewable energy projects. For example, Cambodia is a Mekong country, and we are officially committed to not build any hydropower on the Mekong mainstream. If Cambodia were to build a big hydropower plant, for example, in one of the provinces on the Mekong, we could get something like 800 to 1,000 plus megawatt at a good unit cost. Potentially could lower the cost of energy in Cambodia just like overnight. But we know that by doing so, it would put the livelihoods and the ecological system of the Mekong mainstream and the Tonle Sap lake, which is one of the freshwater lakes, one of the best one, biggest one in the world. We don't want to do so. So that shows that while we need energy security, we also need to make sure that our choices reflect our value, which is to basically protect the environment. So when it comes down to renewable energy, we do careful study, and we look at those in the best interest of our people, not only for this generation, but for the future generation. I like to remind myself many times of the proverb that say that we're living in the present time, not so much from the past, continuation from the past, but we're living in borrowed time from the future. So we have the obligation to make sure that whatever we do today will not spell terrible consequences for our generation to come. So that's our commitment.
Thank you for that. Minister?
Thank you to allow me to add a few things on that. I think let me give some perspective in the PPP project, because PPP project, before you go into project, you need to make we call a study, a feasible study, and it is need social inclusion and social impact, economic impact. This is all taking into account into project. It is important that, but let me bring you to other perspective. When you compare to other country, I would not defend our projects so far. I think I could congratulate our minister what he has done so far. It's very challenging, but the result is amazing for Cambodians so far. But I'm not defending this, but if you compare to other country like, let me give you some renewable energy listing. Who's the most in the top ranking? I would say that Cambodia is among the country that is, pay more attention in the renewable energy, and this is the things that we could go further in this in our future plan. But I think in our project we take it seriously into account the social impact on that issue, and then the future project in the whatever it's come, PPP or other projects, it will be, of course, will be taking into account all the social impact and economic impact on this. And Minister already mentioned that you need the balancing between, as a huge dilemma for Cambodia, need energy and then the the impacts would be challenging for this as well.
Oh, I'm sure it's not only Cambodia that is challenging, it's all of ASEAN, even Laos, I'm sure, right, Mr. Tong? You hear you nodding your head, yes. All right. Can I take any questions from the floor? Okay. Please, we have the roaming mics. Thank you so much. That's lovely.
Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Dara. I'm from Cambodia Israeli Chamber of Commerce. Thank you very much for the opportunity to ask the question for all the panelists today. To my understanding, while we are concerning about using the renewable energy and the sustainability, a lot of people start to think about using electrical vehicle instead of the normal vehicle that we have been using. So, to my understanding, if currently we have only 1,000 electrical vehicle in Cambodia, it's still safe to charge. But if there is 5 million electrical vehicle in Cambodia, so I would like to see if Cambodia already prepared or have the initiative to prepare for the source of energy if all the 5 million electrical vehicles charge at the same time at night. So while we are reducing the other source of energy, and then we also promoting using the electrical vehicle for the environmental purpose. So is there any initiative that we already have in Cambodia for that, sir?
Thank you for your question. That's very important because some places, even as Hong Kong, we don't have enough charging stations for all the Teslas and all the electric vehicles that are coming out of China. You know, that's the logistical problem, right? You have an electric vehicle, but you don't have the charging station. So good point. I mean, what's happening in Cambodia? Minister Rattanang, looks like you got it.
We aim for 40% EV cars and buses, and at least 70% motorcycle, EV motorcycle by 2050. Now, just like other countries, including the developed world, one of the most challenging tasks for policymakers, for governments around the world, when we're promoting EVs is to do with the scale of financial investment that is required to go for sources of renewable energy, but also the investment that will be required for charging infrastructure and transmission networks. That will require billions and billions of dollars, and it will not occur overnight. Having said that, things are moving because with global commitment to climate change, there is a conscious effort by nations around the globe to go in that direction. At this stage, the government of Cambodia is mobilizing key stakeholders to formulate an EV policy, EV, electrical vehicle policies, to look at what are the roles of the governments, what are the roles that can be played best by the private sectors, because we believe, just like we believe in power generation, transmission, distribution, we do not believe that the government should do all. We believe in a government that prepares all the necessary framework, legal framework, institutional framework to basically crowd in private investment. And the issue of public-private partnership will be there. So there will be lots of work to be done. But going straight to the question whether we are concerned about a lot of EVs coming to the street and say, suck in the power from the grid at night in bulk, we are not concerned. We do have enough power and we will have enough clean energy power for EV charging. Our concern is more on how to structure a public-private partnership arrangement in a way that will enable them to invest in the EV charging infrastructure across the country. And this problem and challenge are not unique to Cambodia. It's across the world. And we are making inroad into that. But we will make it happen.
Is there a time frame?
Like I said, we are at the early stage. We are still at the stage of formulating the policies. We have to look at the fiscal incentive that will be required in order to incentivize EV import, for example. We are developing a measure, hopefully, to attract a company to invest in Cambodia to do EV assembly, for example. So this is the work in progress. This is the work in progress at the early stage. But we believe we will be there. But again, I don't want you to worry about the energy, the clean energy that you will need to have in order to be pumped into your EV vehicles. I would not be concerned about that.
Great.
To add to the minister that he's very right in terms of having the private sector playing a bigger role. I just want to mention some example. In Laos, we don't have Grab or Uber, but we have Loka. So Loka is the startup which started from a very small level, and now they provide the taxi to around the city. Actually, there are other players. But if you go to Laos nowadays and you try to book a car for transport, more than 50% is that you would have an electric car. So I think these things, we are in really a transition from the fuel fossil to the electric. And of course, the government provides incentive like zero tax or all these things, but it's not enough if the private sector doesn't, take it, the advantage, or move it. So, and now Loka, they have provided a station for adding the power for all over the place. And this is a small startup, And of course, they work with also, foreign partners. But this is a good example of that, how we need to move on, into helping government and private sector together to really make this transition real. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. Any other questions? Yes. I'll take the question on my left. Yes, sir. Go ahead. And then I'll take yours next. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Nigel with EPAN. I have a very simple question for Ms. Lorraine to ask her panelist. And the question is, businesses require cheap energy to be competitive. Cambodia has one of the highest energy costs in terms of electricity, which businesses struggle with. And if you're implementing clean energy, it's going to cost more, definitely. There is also another issue that is determined based on the geopolitical issues with energy. You can see that wars have been fought on energy because everybody wants cheap energy. I do not know where the balance is, and I think you can ask this panel, how is this going to affect ASEAN for companies like us to be competitive and to address? Of course, you're going to say this is going to be the 4th largest economy in the world, but if you're not going to be competitive, then you're going to be in a crisis, right? So that's my question to you.
Great question. You didn't need to ask me to ask them. They heard you quite clearly, I think. It's whether they want to answer your question, but it's a good question. Who wants to take that up? All right.
I'll break the ice. First off, I have heard this statement and seen this kind of statement, the same statement for the last 40 years, and they haven't changed. These tend to be the statement that is written by biased press who has not looked at our development for the last 15 years.
So it's not true, you're saying?
If you look at two things, one, that our installed renewable energy capacity is more than 60% at this stage. You can put this number and compare to the rest of the world, including America, and many countries in Europe, probably you don't have that mix. Number two, if you compare our tariffs to many countries in Europe, we are not higher. Even in some countries in ASEAN. So typically, statement like that compares our tariff to a heavily subsidized tariff in Vietnam, for example, that has a different energy mix composition. So when you said that our tariff is one of the highest in the world, it does not reflect the development on the ground for the last 15 years. And we are not the cheapest, but I think the tariffs that we offer reflects the development at this stage, the effort that we've made. And look at the poorest of the poor, are utilizing energy at less than 10 cents per kilowatt hour. We are cheaper than California for sure, which is more than 30 cents. But your concern is right, that when it comes to industrial competitiveness, you are concerned, and for understandable reason, that yes, as we go greener, you are concerned that the tariffs may be higher. And that is the reason why Cambodia is putting in place a very balanced approach to energy development and energy transition going forward. Our energy policy must meet 4 key criteria. One, it has to be cleaner. Second, it has to be more affordable. And third, it has to be more reliable in terms of grid reliability. And four, it has to be equitable. That energy empowers women. That energy lifts up communities. That's what we talk about equity. So under this acronym CARE, clean, affordable, reliable, and equitable care, we must do all. We don't have to sacrifice one for another. And we believe we can do so. And that is the reason why, as we're going forward, we want to make sure that the technology combination will meet these 4 criteria. And that's the reason why yesterday, in my address to the Japan-US Mekong Power Partnership Initiative Conference, I seek friends and allies' understanding in the type of technology we combine. Because we don't have the best choices. We don't have nuclear. We're not going to build new coal. We are committed to that. We are not building any hydro on the Mekong mainstream. So it will leave us with a few options, something like good hydro candidates, pumped storage hydro, combination of solar and wind. And we know clearly well that going forward with the climate change, hydro will also be at risk of climate change. We may not have as much rainfall as we used to have, for example. And we're mindful of that. So the way we see our development going forward is to take advantage of the lowering cost of solar panels, deploying more large-scale solar farm, and wind technology will come in. And leverage that with regional power trade, like the ones that we've been working with Laos. We are importing 12% of good energy from Laos, because this is the way to balance ourselves with the need to encroach onto the environment, but also about mitigating our own domestic renewable resource endowment constraints. So we believe that these can meet your concern, that as we're going forward in a greener path to net zero, we make sure that the costs will not rise, that reliability will not be sacrificed, the equity issue will further enhance, not lowering.
Thank you. You heard him. You heard the minister. Yes, can I take your question? Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Very good morning, Excellency, distinguished guests, friends, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Soking Chi. I'm the founder, chairman, and CEO of Horizon Group, and the advisory member of Cambodia Chamber of Commerce. I'm honored and blessed to be part of this wonderful event and with all of you guys, and I'm very inspired by your insightful work in keynote addresses and presentation. Meanwhile, I have a few questions to Minister and His Excellency Ms. Sok Sen San as well. Number one, to Minister, is it possible to have an ASEAN joint clean energy hub in each member state, especially Kingdom of Cambodia, please? Question number two, to His Excellency Ms. Sok Sen San, is there any policy to reduce the electricity price in our beautiful country, especially for educational sector or not? Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you for your two questions. Minister.
Thank you for the question. We believe that we only have one, well, it's a fact, not that we believe, but it's a fact that we only have one planet Earth to preserve and to protect. And that's the reason why I've been going to different fora and make the case for that the climate agenda should rise above politics. Because at the end of the day, climate impacts does not respect border. Pollution in Cambodia can go across nation in ASEAN and from ASEAN to other continents and vice versa. So that's one fact. And secondly, that no country has all the technologies, the human capacity, the finances, and also the geography that can really have the best optimal result. Take, for instance, Singapore. Today, it generates 95% of its electricity from gas. It does not have to be this way. If we can be linked up, which is the effort, ongoing effort, we've been working together so aggressively, we can have the ASEAN power grid that can connect the 10 ASEAN countries together, and we can swap peak power across nations. That it doesn't have to be Singapore taking all clean energy from other countries. It can do that, and it should do that, but it would also allow Singapore to even send some of the good firm energy back to a country like Cambodia, because this kind of power trade basically would allow each nation to lower costs because the economy of scale. Secondly, it would allow that we can save the environment, that we do not have to we don't have to put a lot of generation margin in excess to keep. For example, it is typical for ASEAN nation to keep at least 20 to 25 generation reserve margin just to take care of the demand rise. Imagine if we can be linked up. Imagine when we could lower the reserve margin to say 5 or 10% and still meet the challenges of the day. And that would allow us to scale back our generation necessity by a big margin. And that means saving the environment. So connecting together, it would lower costs, it's good for industries, it's good for people, it makes perfect environmental sense, but it would also bring people closer together. Like I said in my keynote address, linking nations together in ASEAN, it's not about sending electrons around. Yes, it will be, but we would also see that as an opportunity to link up supply chain. If we can have subsea cables to Singapore, we could also have subsea cable manufacturing in ASEAN, creating green jobs for many millions of ASEAN people. So this is the type of collaborative advantage that we want to promote. This is the type of scheme that we want to have. Thank you.
Thank you. Minister, the hub hub question.
Yes, my answer is very quick. Is that if you it looks into tariff, electricity tariff, when you look, it's normally you wouldn't have this kind of tariff without any support from the government. I think for the poor, of course, yes. But for your question, I think we need to have a one policy, because we could not have identify for one sector and then would harm other sectors. I think you mentioned education. Of course, we need to look for overall policy and get it and to the right point to support whether it's come to education, but it's good. Somebody would and another day would come and ask for the health sector, for example. So it needs to be discussed more. But I just assure you that the government support is for that. Without government support, you wouldn't have this tariff. Yes. Thank you.
May I just add one quick point? He was asking about whether we could have the ASEAN Joint Energy Hub, Clean Energy Hub. The ASEAN Power Grid, known as the APG in short, is the hub. We've been working with Singapore to arrive at a situation where each nation does not have to subscribe to the old narrow-minded notion that each country has to have its own control center, for example. If we have ASEAN Power Grid, electrons can flow around just like you have internet today. You don't need a hub in Phnom Penh. It can be anywhere. It doesn't have to be in Phnom Penh. You can have cloud, you can have this and that distributed. So the ASEAN Power Grid is the hub. And that is the type of openness that we want to promote.
Thank you. Okay, there are two more questions on the floor, and then I want to ask one more question from Laos. Okay. Yes, the lady in the second row. Thank you.
Good morning, Your Excellency and distinguished guests. I'm Kevin from Kampot Port and Special Economic Zone. So we currently have foreign companies from Singapore and Australia very interested in investing in renewable energy sources such as offshore wind turbines and solar energies. And we want to attract them to set up in Kampot Port Special Economic Zone. We strongly believe that this will provide more jobs for our people and help to lower our electricity prices. Hence, my question is, what specific policies and plans does the Cambodian government have to help these companies invest in renewable energies, to help attract foreign companies and help us in the private sector who want to jointly invest in this green energy generation? Thank you.
Thank you. That was one of my questions coming up, but great question. All right. Mr. Clements, you want to try? You're on the business field.
Sure. Thank you for the question, and thank you for the allocation to me. Certainly the government provides incentives, structures through the CDC in terms of investment. It has the PPP law, which also provides protection around those investments. I think it's also finding the right partner if they're not comfortable in coming into Cambodia or into this part of the world, because they're coming from those countries you mentioned. Singapore should be, but Australians, being an Australian, tend to be a little bit nervous coming into Asia. They come and go. Then they should partner up with someone who's actually going to give them comfort. So, the Pot Special Economic Zone is one party they could actually deal with. There's many others. So I think the government does have a policy around PPP. That's a law. It also has the number of structures and approvals and incentives around the CDC, and those, be it tax and other sort of benefits in terms of importing equipment, also bringing people into the country that might require the skills and enable that skill transfer. So I think there's a lot of capability to encourage investors. I think the issue that was raised earlier about energy cost, I echo the Minister's comments. I think, it's a situation that's historic. You look at where they're building capacity and also around renewable. That's what investors want. They actually want extra capacity, make sure it's stable. And I think you've seen that the grid is stable now compared to 15 years ago when I came here. We did have brownouts and blackouts. That is stable now. And the increase in capacity will ensure, as the Minister said, the costs won't increase. And I think you look at other things around like my country again, I'll pick on Australia, you've seen energy costs increase year after year after year, right? So I think we're actually lucky here that we actually have two things: increasing capacity, where other countries are reducing their capacity and increasing costs, and more importantly, we're renewable. And that's the other thing that investors want. They actually want renewable green energy. So yes, we have to be competitive, but we have to be competitive on cost, which we are, and I think we have to be competitive on the source of power, which we are.
I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, you were looking for maybe some specific policies? Yes. Minister?
Thank you. It's a very good question. First, like I said before, that the role of the government, the way we see it, we see the power and entrepreneurship and the technology. It all comes from the private sector. We don't produce technology. Government doesn't do that most of the time. And certainly in Cambodia, we don't do that. So we expect that the private sector has a very strong role to play in development, especially in the green energy transition towards net zero by 2050. Now, anything we do evolves around one particular issue, which is to de-risk for the private sector. So what have we done specifically? First, we have established a clear legal framework. The law on public-private partnership is designed specifically to make sure that we have a clear, open, transparent process to engage the private sector. Number two, we are open. You've seen bad press against Cambodia many times. But Cambodia, in reality, is a good place for investment. In the energy sector in particular, we are open to, for example, international arbitration. English law is the law that governs our contracts. So if you have a dispute and you cannot settle that dispute amicably among the parties, you can pursue that arbitration at The Hague, New York, Hong Kong, for example, Paris. So Cambodia is a signatory to the New York Convention. We are a signatory to the parties under the International Center for the Settlement of Investment Dispute by the World Bank. So governing our contract, English law, international arbitration, you should take it as a big piece of comfort. Number three, large-scale hydropower, long-term project like hydropower development projects, large-scale solar farm project. We even give the projects, the investor, the sovereign guarantee, which means that this is approved by the cabinet, by the government. We have to go through the National Assembly, go through the Senate, and sign off by the king. It's a sovereign guarantee, and that is solid behind any investment you may undertake. Tax incentives. We have been providing 9 years of tax holiday for energy project, which is not easy to find around. So we do open bidding. And for example, one of the solar projects that we bid out received the lowest price ever in ASEAN with the collaboration with Asian Development Bank. So these are some of the specific legal policy instruments that we have put in place to encourage private sector participation in renewable energy projects.
Thank you. Minister, would you like to add anything?
If you allow me, I can give you some good example for the investment in these sectors. For example, in the Bavet investment project, which is quite successful for Singapore investment that have been so far. But of course, we already mentioned, my colleague already clearly mentioned that the PPP incentive will we have so many sides of incentive. You have also, of course, the government guarantee that my minister also mentioned, but you have also the some asset contribution government, and then the investment incentive, like the import that Mr. Clement already mentioned, that this kind of incentives that we would see more, and it would probably look more attractive to all investors who's come in these sectors, yes.
Thank you. The lady. Oh, it was the same question you were sharing. Okay. Any other questions from the floor? Yes, sir. I'll take yours, and then yours in the pink tie, and then yours at the back. All right. Can we have a roaming mic in the center? Yes, sir. Can you stand up? Thank you. Thank you very much.
បាទខ្ញុំសូមគោរពខ្ញុំបាទសៀសិទ្ធិភាពអនុប្រធានសភាពាណិជ្ជកម្មខេត្តព្រៃវែងហើយក៏ជាប្រតិបត្តិការទឹកស្អាតបែបជាឯកជនខ្ញុំសូមមានសំណួរសួរទៅវាគ្មិនក៏ដូចជាអាដាមរដ្ឋមន្ត្រីហើយតកតងជាមួយនឹងធម្មពលធម្មតាខ្ញុំជាប្រតិបត្តិក៏គុតគង់ទឹកស្អាតអញ្ចឹងខ្ញុំប្រើធម្មពលអគ្គិសនីជាចម្បងដែលបូករួមទៅនឹងថ្លៃដើមហើយដោយសារយើងជាអេស៊ានយើងធ្វើការអភិវឌ្ឍដើម្បីនាំចូល product មួយចំនួនដូចជាផលិតករស្រុកខ្មែរហ្នឹងគឺពឹងផ្អែកទៅលើធម្មពលអគ្គិសនីជាចម្បងហ្នឹងហើយដែលបីធ្វើការផលិតនៅផលិតផលមួយចំនួនគួតផ្សេងអញ្ចឹងជាខ្ញុំគិតឃើញថាធម្មពល solar ឬក៏ធម្មពលដែលបានពីខ្យល់អាចសង្គ្រោះជាមួយនឹងភ្លើងអគ្គិសនីដោយមន្ទិលសង្ស័យសូមសួរទៅឯកឧត្តមរដ្ឋមន្ត្រីថាការដែលយើងមានលទ្ធភាព install ទៅលើប្រព័ន្ធ solar ជាចម្បងសិនតើខាងអាជ្ញាធរអគ្គិសនីក៏ដូចជាខាងក្រសួងផិនឯកឧត្តមរដ្ឋមន្ត្រីមានជាគោលនយោបាយជាក់លាក់ណាមួយដើម្បីគ្រប់គ្រងក៏ដូចជាលើកទឹកចិត្តហើយក៏តាមខ្ញុំដឹងដូចជាមានការដកភាគរយនៅពេលដែលអាជីវករឬក៏ផលិតករគាត់មានលទ្ធភាព install solar ទៅសង្គ្រោះជាមួយនឹងភ្លើងអគ្គិសនីផិនឯកឧត្តមបាទសូមអរសំណួរ
For the audience who don't understand the Khmer language, let me give you a translation. He actually come from a water treatment plant operator, and the question is, if he install rooftop solar, what specific policy we may have in place that does not penalize solar rooftop users. Now, if you look at the four pillars of our grid development and energy policy, one is clean energy, which is C. Second is affordability, which is A. And the third pillar is reliability, which is R. And of course, the fourth one is equity. Now, for any utilities across the globe, renewable energies present a new challenge. The nature of intermittency. You have power when the sun is up, and you have wind power when the wind blows, and you don't have when you don't have. So how to balance this to make sure that you can have uninterrupted supply at the same time you don't sacrifice your grid reliability, which means that you don't want the blackout every other hour. That would not work for industry and for livelihood in general. So there must be a balance between what would be a contribution from the rooftops and what would be a contribution from the large-scale solar farm. They do have their own pros and cons. I do not want to take this regional forum to go specific into that policy, but we do have a specific policy in place. So if you go to the regulatory body website under the Electricity Authority of Cambodia website, you will see all those policies. Nobody penalizes anyone, but there has to be a contribution, there has to be a technical compliance when you start to synchronize your system with the grid, because what happened in your installation could cast repercussion into the grid system, and that's all.
All right, thank you. The gentleman was sitting there, wanted to ask a question, and he's left now. All right, shall I take yours then, sir? Yeah, a second row again, please. Can we have a mic? Yes, right in front of you. Thank you. Got to switch that knob on. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good start. Your Excellency and panel guests, thank you very much for your extremely interesting presentation and for the information that you're sharing today. I'm James Roberts from KPMG, Cambodia. My question to yourself, Your Excellency, and all of the panelists, as somebody who deals with international investors, what would be the message that you would like everybody that's attended this conference today to take from your respective ministries to the international investment community?
Thank you. That's a good question. Can I start with Laos? Would I?
So I think like mentioned in the beginning, so the strategy of the government is really into the moving into the renewable energy. So I think pretty much in Asia, I would say the green energy is a huge topic, no? So that's why I think there are lots of incentive and promotions. But of course, I mean, we need to move to the fact, no? I mean, as a private sector myself, I think that there's many potential, and that's why investors nowadays look to our region for renewable energy investment. So I think it's a good time, and I think most countries are very, are very willing to assist. I'm not from the government side, but I can somehow mention, because we do have a regular discussion with the Ministry of Laos of Energy and Mining, for example. So I would say that now is a very good timing, and considering the, I think the war in Ukraine, and which has really pushed people into the rise of the EV, just show you that it accelerates the need of this clean energy, and plus in Europe in the next 3-4 years, I mean, the trucks to carry the goods are all electrical. You cannot use fuel. So in Asia, this is a good time that in ASEAN to really bring our minds together. And we didn't mention yet the use of digital technology in optimizing our energy grids, which that can be really, a big mobilizations of using, AI, IoT to really, we talk about platform, digital platform to trade. So there are a lot of things to do to reduce the costs, not just as we mentioned earlier, but I think with the new innovation, we can really, and for the investment, I think it's a really good time for renewable sources, especially wind in Laos. We have many projects coming up on winds, and biomass is also trying to push solar. I think solar is always, there's development in the storage, storage of the battery, etc. So we need to have, I would say, maybe work with academia to use the latest research and innovation into our development on this area.
Mr. Clements, you want to add something before I turn to the ministers? Yeah. Are you sharing a mic now, are you? Oh, all right.
We only got one mic, sorry.
Oh, sorry about that.
James, thanks for the question. I think summarizing some of the comments that were made earlier from the panel, the opportunity is here, right, in Cambodia. There's a business need, there's a social, economic need for more power, right? So there's the first thing. And can be an acceptable, good return in terms of that. That's also then enhanced further by the government guarantee and the government incentives. Cambodia is the right place for renewable energy, certainly for solar and for hydro. So again, it's the right location to be. And it supports the regional play that we all talked about, the connectivity and the collectiveness of what we want to achieve across the hub, that the Minister talked about. So Cambodia is ready to invest. And I think, with projects like the Singapore deal, that's a massive opportunity for investment, and it sets the position for other investment around energy.
Thank you. Mr. Rotana, and then Minister.
Thank you. If you ask the existing IPPs in the energy sector today, they would ask for more projects. They are seeking more projects because they are successful. So I think that is a testament to all the statements people have made in the morning that Cambodia is a good place for investment. If it were to be bad, then people would not want to invest more. That's factual. The message to James, thank you for the question. I think I would like to you to take away from the fact that if you listen to all of us, from policymakers from Vietnam, from Malaysia, from Laos and Thailand, Singapore, this region is going forward with a net zero commitment by 2050. That opens many possibilities for investment in green projects. we talk about, and there's no turning back. The ASEAN Power Grid, for example, will open more possibilities for investing in clean energy project from a generation standpoint, but also from the transmission, operation, and maintenance standpoint, including the production of some of this cable in the region itself, including the subsea cable. Now, recently, during the official visit by our Prime Minister to Vientiane, we signed a few MOUs that will see Cambodia importing something like 3+ gigawatts of renewable energy that consists of solar, hydro, wind, and even geothermal energy to Cambodia. So this is not about our government investing in those projects. It's about giving a framework and opportunity for people like you who could go and talk to Laos IPPs or partners and team up and invest and sell either to the Lao grid and channel to Cambodia or directly with our national grid through an exclusive off-take kind of agreement. So we open many possibilities. So back to James, I'm pretty sure that you will find in the few years to come, there would be more possibility in investing directly in project, in green project in Cambodia, as well as in project in other ASEAN countries that have power flow across from one nation to another.
Thank you. Minister?
Well, I have two messages, very short message. First is that, of course, Cambodia is aware that we need investors, of course, and we need to create a very good environment for business and more attractive to this, and this is clear for us. I don't think that many governments create such a forum, like it's called Government Business Forum, which you have a platform that you could discuss frankly with each others and then solve some solution. I think this is the one best way that we're trying to do more and improve in the further program for the government. The second thing is that, of course, I would not say in terms of energy, but I believe in comparative advantage. It means that you live in the region and then you need each others. Cambodian would play one of comparative advantage when you compare to other region. We are not the same dynamic, we are not the same capacity and ability to attract or what else is come, but we're trying to be more competitive, but we're trying to be comparative as well. So this is my second message. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the floor? Yes, sir. In front. We'll just take this last question from the floor then.
Good morning. Yeah. Good morning, Excellency and panelists. This question is addressed to the Excellency Soksen San and also Excellency Ratana, and especially on the PPP. So can you elaborate the model of EPP, how it's really work similar? I mean, just as some case study maybe. And then, of course, PPP I've got behind that is the financing mean. So is any way that we call is more private driven or public driven? And then we're talking about energy. Is there any way that the like green bond or even green financings can blend into your PPP models? And then the other one is when we are promoting a lot of EV and then a lot of solar, which is good, but we're also facing another issue, which is disposal of all the solar waste and EV waste. So what are the mechanisms that the government in place, because that will cross the jurisdiction of the other, the department like Ministry of Environment, and how this being addressed as a joint effort, and whether the PPP can be also triggered in the way of the treatment of the waste, because when we're talking about all the solar and all the EV, we are going to face, there's a lot of waste to be built out in the future when the EV are rolled out, yeah.
That's very true, very, very true. Minister.
Well, I'm glad you asked about PPP. I'm very happy to hear this question. We have so many available of incentive for the government in terms of PPP. PPP is a model that's similar to another country. It's a common model, but you tend to have flexibility in terms of some other issues, some other incentives that government play a role in this. We, of course, in this stage, I think the government need Cambodian government need more private to jump into the project, and we tend to be more flexible in this. There's some challenge, of course, but we're trying to mobilize resource and put it. We have so many funds that VGF fund is one of the, it's a common model. We have availability payment for the fund as well. We have all other incentives that which my colleagues already mentioned on the incentive side. So it's not a clear sector that of course you mentioned about waste management. Waste management would be things that government pay attention on that as well. But we have also others like in I would say in terms of infrastructure, because PPP tends more in pay attention more on infrastructure. But of course, there's so much incentive, which I encourage you to look into our website and our policy. We are just new. The law just come in 2021, but we have trying to create more clarification, like we create SOP, we create more guideline in order to, to have a better understanding to invest into PPP project. And I would say that it is a time for Cambodia, it is time for all investors to look into the PPP projects, since the government, when you look into government budgets, we still have a constrained budget, and our fiscal space is not big enough to guarantee all the investment, and we need investment. So all this would be playing a very important role. But please look into our website, and we have so many incentives to give to you. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to add anything? Would you like to add anything, Minister?
Just a quick thing. At the heart of the PPP law is a more streamlined procedure, how we inform the private sector, because some of you may be complaining that you don't know what project is coming, what is the bidding, is it direct negotiation. This is the issue that the government wants to address, that when there are business opportunities, the government wants to have a clear, transparent process that can get you engaged. So this is at the heart of it. Now, in the PPP, there are efforts that the ministry will have to make. Ideally, they can really do a lot of bidding and invitation that is more predictable. So only in certain situations where a project getting more complex because of the short of funding from the government, and therefore we cannot do bidding, then it requires a different model. For example, to do a hydro project, someone must invest a lot of money in doing the feasibility study into the millions of dollars. So for example, if the government does not have the funding, then it could turn to companies, private companies, to invest, and they would get the first call to negotiation. That is a complex project. Assuming that it's a less complex project, solar farm, for example, we could bid out like we have been doing all along. And EDC, the National Electric Company, is going to do more bidding. So this kind of arrangement is governed by the PPP. So a more streamlined, predictable, transparent process that can engage the private sector. That's one. Now, yes, you are concerned about the growth of energy project, especially on the need to close the financial gap. While sitting this morning in this room, I was sitting next to the chairwoman of the National Bank of Cambodia. And we are going to form a committee to look at how we can establish green financing. So that's on the way. And dealing with solid waste, yes, it's going to be an issue. Although we are at the early stage of deploying solar panel, for example, so they are still up and running. We don't really throw a lot of things out. But still, I would see that this is a new opportunity, that when it comes to time when you have to deal with solid waste, for example, for solar panel that is not used, that is commissioned, then this is the time for you to engage with our Ministry of Environment to find a business opportunity that you can help them do a social job, environmental job, but create green employment and profit for yourself. Thank you.
That's right. We forget about that. We forget about the repercussions of waste management and so on, and how it could actually act as a solution to a number of problems. But we've talked about a lot about the financing, incentives, policies, blah, 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 blah. I'd like to end with this question, and it's for all of you, and it's an ASEAN kind of question. And Mr. Tanong Singh, you mentioned a little bit about that, and that was education. And I think it's important as an ASEAN member and ASEAN member states, if they were to adopt renewable energy, they really do have to consider the skills available for the jobs out there, correct? And what then, in your opinion, and Mr. Talong Singh, since you brought it up, I'll ask you first, what you think the role of education is as regards energy transition?
Well, I think today, for example, the vocational education is become very important, not in just a developed country before, but now in developing country like ours. So there's a very intense focus on that, and but of course there are lots of works to make it really, to realize, to make it successful. And you mentioned for the renewable energy, so I would think, of course, the engineering. Okay, we just came from UK, so visiting Pearson's, and where they have so many courses, and even in e-games, they have courses in e-games and in sports, so all these things. And engineering, I used to be a lecturer myself in computer science in the National Polytechnic. So we have civil engineer, we have mechanical engineer. And when there are projects like for hydropowers coming, there's so many needs of people of various skills. But the mass is on the vocational level. So I think nowadays education everywhere needs to be reformed. You always say the curriculum here is not sufficient. So we talk about already today about future-ready education programs, that really combines the new things that are coming up. Easy to learn, easy to adapt to the new lifestyle of the young people, mobile, using the mobile. And so I think aside from engineering, so you need also, I think, all the cost-related skills. And so I think that, we need to really focus on the, I would say that the education ecosystems, that can produce the workforce for what we're talking about, reforming the ASEAN or the energy grid, for example. So many things that we talk about. So I think it's a big job, and academia, business, government needs to work together. One sector cannot work by itself. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Clements?
Sure, education is the driver of growth, or one of the pillars. I think for energy transition, I think we certainly need to also educate the community, the local community. And as the Minister said earlier, it's about looking to save power as well. It's one of the pillars. It's not about sort of, building new generation assets. It's about how we can be more efficient and save power. Some of that can go back to also waste management as well. So I think that's one. The other one is, the skills to build, construction, and also to do the generation. And as we build our capacity here, that just needs more employment. So I think that then goes back to the connectivity, but not necessarily the connectivity, it's the collective responsibility across the Asian hub to provide support, whether that's IP, whether it's actually sharing their knowledge. In fact, working with one Singapore company on energy, and they are willing to partner, also willing to send people here and do the education transfer. And then, that will be obviously transferred, and they can retract in terms of that cost base to put people here. So I think it is the collective responsibility across the region and the hub that we're talking about. One about education of the population, not just Cambodia, but the region, and also about skill transfer.
That's right. Minister Sok Sen Sao.
Well, it's a question across the board. I think I would not speak on behalf of the Ministry of Education, but I think it's an ethnic issue. Green is an ethnic issue. It's must be aware from every stakeholders. I mean, even from the private sectors, need be more awareness of the when and how they want to invest. This is the issue that we need to engage the private sector. But of course, from my side, from the Ministry of Economy and Finance, in terms of PPP project, we are luckily that we have support from the Australian government to make a lot of training, and we put a lot of effort into all who's in charge of the PPP must be aware that green and renewable energy would be important things that you would make the decision in every project. So this is the kind of things that we need to go further and trying to develop more in terms of training and capacity building.
Thank you, Minister. And last word, Mr. Rantana.
Thank you. Again, thanks for all the questions. But like I said before, upskilling and reskilling our workforce is a key priority in an approach towards our net zero success. Especially for Cambodia, women make up more than 50% of the total population. And we need all the help we can get. So in our policy, for example, for solar scale, a grid scale solar farm project, we require in our concession condition that concessionaire must employ at least 60% of women. And that is possible. That is possible. I think we are probably one of the first countries in ASEAN to have done so. That's why in our policy, women and young people are central to our approach. We would like to see energy transition toward the net zero by 2050 as a process of empowerment. That our development must be inclusive, that the benefits from the development process must be equitable. And we see the role, a strong role of education that can be played and should be played by members of the private sector on top of what the government can do. When it comes to raising awareness for energy efficiency, we expect the participation by, say, the private sector, because we cannot just keep generating power. We must look at the demand side, not only the supply side. And therefore, energy efficiency is at the core of our net zero policy as well. We need industry to be more efficient, the processes to be more efficient. We need new building shelves to be more energy efficient. We need agriculture to be more efficient. So if we work together, I think we can achieve that. And that requires education and awareness. And it is not the government is not the only player around. We must bring all help we can get. And you have a role to play. Thank you.
And invest in the future. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your questions. Would you join me in thanking the panelists, please? Thank you so much.